In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an automated daily reporting system for your agency employees. Using these two automations right here, which I'm going to create live with you guys from scratch, we're going to be building an automated system that sends daily reports to your employees based on the tasks within your project management system. What this basically does is create daily action plans for your employees, which are custom messaged to them every single morning, telling them exactly what overdue tasks they have, what tasks they have due today, to give them an idea of how they actually should tackle the day. For context, guys, my name's Leo. I'm the CEO and founder of Fluxomate. We help leading seven-figure agencies making all the way up to 300K a month improve the backend system so they can make more money. This is literally the same system that we use in our agency and in our partner's agency. I'll show you how to create these automations, how to integrate this within your project management tool, and how to actually launch this by the end of the video so you can have this exact same internal reporting system for your employees as soon as possible. Let's get straight into it. All right, so there's three main things we need before we actually get started building this automation, which I showed you guys a second ago. The first thing is fairly simple. We need a task management tool. Now, this doesn't have to be anything complicated. It can be a Google Sheet, it can be something like Asana, it can be something like ClickUp. The main thing we need is an ability to have a set of tasks that we can set due dates for and that we can actually assign to employees. Those are kind of the two main criteria. Most project management tools allow this. I mean, if they don't, you probably should consider having a new one. I'll show you what I'm going to use in a second. But once again, it doesn't really matter which tool you use. As long as you follow kind of the same principles I talk about in this video, you'll be able to build the same system I showed you guys a second ago within your agency. The second thing we need is some sort of database. Now, I don't want you to get confused by this or overwhelmed. This is nothing complicated whatsoever. We're literally going to build this out live on a Google Sheet for you so you can copy the exact same thing in your agency. And the only reason we have this is because we want to be able to store tasks that are overdue and tasks that are due today. So when we send this nice report to employees, they can see an overview. Okay, these are the tasks that are overdue, so where the due date is past today's date, and these are tasks that are due today, so where the due date is equal today's date. And we're going to be using a Google Sheet database to actually store all of this. And the third thing we need, which is probably the simplest thing, hopefully if you're at any point in your agency where you actually have team members, you have this, it's a communication tool. And very simply, in this example, I'm going to be using Slack. All you need is somewhere where you can actually send an SMS to your employees every single morning with those reports. And in this example, I'm going to use Slack because that's what I prefer the format. So let's quickly get these 3 points out of the way, and then we can move on to actually building this automation out in make.com. So the first thing we said we needed was a task management system. And in this example, I'm going to be using a task management system that we actually built out in a previous video. If you want to check it out, check out this video right here. But once again, guys, don't get too focused on this. This doesn't have to be anything complicated. In this example, I'm using this project management tool, which I think is kind of the creme of the creme, the best of the best. However, it doesn't really matter. You can use ClickUp, Asana, whatever project management tool you're using. The key thing that we have here, or that we need to have, I guess I should say, is the ability to set due dates for individual tasks and assign tasks to individual employees. For example, example task 2, you can see it has a due date for the 26th, and that is actually assigned to an employee. This is all we need. Obviously, we do need the ability to actually script a task as well, but we're talking about in the automation side of things. Once you actually have a project management tool, the second thing you need is that database. So let's go ahead and actually build this out on Google Sheets. So within Google Sheets, I've gone ahead and actually created a new sheet. I'm just going to go ahead and rename this the daily task database, and this doesn't have to be anything complicated. The main thing we need is 4 different columns. The first column is going to be the employee ID. Now, this is where we're basically going to be identifying each employee by a specific ID so we can actually send that message to them. The second thing we're going to need is the overdue tasks. This is where we're going to be storing tasks that are overdue. So once again, where the due date is older than today's date. And then we need tasks that are actually due today. And fairly simple, this is where we'll be able to store the different tasks that are actually due today so we can actually send that updated message. And then the last thing we need is the actual date, because this is going to be a database that doesn't refresh every single day. We'll be able to store these variables over time. So fairly simple. I'm just going to clean this up to make it just look at slightly nicer. You don't have to do this, obviously. And that's pretty much it. This is what we're going to be adding every single day. Because guys, just to give you some context, this is how the automation flow is actually going to look like. So we're going to have this right here. The first automation is basically going to scrape all the employees every day. Once it's done that, it's then going to go ahead and scrape all the different tasks. And then we're going to go ahead and split the tasks into 2 different sections we talked about earlier. So overdue tasks, and then tasks that are due today. Then we're going to group each one of these tasks by different employees, and then have it actually update the Google Sheet. So that's pretty much the setup, guys. Let's get started actually talking about how we can actually build this automation. Which to actually build it, we're going to be using make.com. If you hadn't heard of it, it's basically just an automation tool. It's very similar to something like Zapier or N8N, which has been popular since the start of 2025. At the end of the days, these tools are fairly similar. All they're doing is just repackaging different APIs. So anything you can do on make.com, you can do on Zapier. So don't worry too much if you're a Zapier lover and you want to build this out on Zapier, because I'm sure you can do a fairly similar thing. So I've actually gone ahead and actually actually open up make.com. I'm not going to go ahead and actually sort you guys with the setup process. I'm sure you can figure out your smartphone to do that. Let's get started with that actual automation. The first step we're actually going to do this automation is basically find all our active employees. Now, within our project management system, if I go with the data, you can see we have an employee database, right? And this is what we're basically going to scrape in. The reason we want this because these automation I'm going to be sending in a second, these data reports, they're going to be split by different employees. So the first thing I want to do is basically find all the active employees which I actually need to contact. So for that, I'm going to go over to my automation, search for Noloco. Once again, in this case, I'm using Noloco. You can use a project management system you actually want to use. And if I scroll down a bit, you see that function to search for records. I'm going to open it up, and within an individual function, I'm going to go ahead and actually collect it if I haven't already. But for the collection, I'm going to scroll down to employee, and that's pretty much it. If I now go ahead and run this, as you'll see, it's going to basically go ahead and find all the active employees I actually have. So you can see it's found six different bundles. We have employee 3, employee 2, and I should also have me, Leo Fluxomate. Perfect. Now that we actually find those employees, we basically want to update this. And all we're basically going to be updating is we're going to be adding the employee ID right here, which is just basically a unique identifier for the employees, and then the actual today's date. So if I go over here, I'm going to add another module. I'm going to search for Google Sheets, and I'm going to scroll to the very beginning, actually, add a new row. Now, once I've actually done that, I need to search for my Google Sheet. Now, I like to do is just search by all. And if you put ID founder, you can just enter your D words, which in this case is the daily task database. And I'm going to go press OK, and it should automatically find it for me, which makes it life a bit easier. I don't have to dig through my different folders. Now, for the sheet name, I'm going to open this up, go to sheet 1, and then once I'm in here, it's basically going to show me all the different headers, if I actually have some. And the main thing I want to map is the employee ID, which I can do just by clicking here, and then by going over here, choosing the ID, and actually today's date. Now, in order to actually map today's date, I want to format it just to make it look a bit nicer. If you don't do this, it's not a necessary step if you want to call it that, but we want to make sure that we can actually, see the date in clear terms without having a time and time zone, all that stuff. Just a generic date. Fairly simple. And if you actually run this, you'll see it's going to search for different employees, and then it's going to go ahead and add it to my project or my daily task database, as you can see here. Let me just change this because I don't like the formatting of that. I want to change this to black and then change this to white. As you can see, I've got all my employees ID with today's date, which is the 3rd of March. Which is 21st of March 2025. Us Brits and you Americans like to format this a bit differently. But anyways, so once you've actually gone ahead and searched for different employees and created them or added them to our Google row, the next step we actually want to do is search for our different tasks. So I'm going to add another module, and this time it's going to be Noloco again, and I'm going to search records, and this time rather than employees, I'm going to search my task database, which is basically just this. Just a list of all different tasks, right? Most project management tools have a similar functionality. Like for example, if I search for ClickUp, I can put list all tasks. Fairly similar function. All we're doing is basically just scraping all the available tasks. So I'm going to press save here. I don't need to filter anything here. But the main thing I want to do here is add a step, because I don't necessarily want to trigger this, right? At the moment, this is basically output to 6 different bundles. So right now, if I run this step, it's going to search the whole task database 6 different times, which I don't really care for. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to enter a very simple function or filter that the total number of bundles has to be equal to the bundle order position. So basically, rather than running this single module 6 times from searching the task database 6 times, it's only going to go ahead and search it once. This will save me some operation usage just down the line and just makes the whole process a bit easier, so we don't have to repeat the whole 6 times unnecessarily. So guys, if I actually go ahead and run this just to show you, now we've basically found every employee. We're going to add those rows to the Google Sheet, and now we're going to scrape our task database just once, as you can see. So here I've got a list of all the available tasks, and this is where the magic starts happening, because now we need to actually group these tasks. Now for this, I'm going to add a router, which in make.com is basically just how you can kind of split the path into 2 separate ways. I'm going to be going more into the paths in a second, but the main thing I want to clarify first is why we don't necessarily want this to pass for every single pass. For example, if in my project management tool a task is complete, we don't necessarily need to have this, right? Because we don't need to send updates about completed tasks. They're already complete. The same way we don't necessarily want tasks that don't have an assigned employee to kind of flow to this flow, because we won't be able to assign them to a specific employee, which doesn't really provide a lot of value for us. So over here, before we actually go to the router, I'm going to add in a filter with 2 different conditions. Firstly, for my tasks, I have to make sure that the status all the way down here is not equal to, and I'm going to put case insensitive in this case, just because I don't want to find a specific format. And then here, I'm going to add a status where the status should not be equal to complete, because once again, I don't really want to process this for every single task, just the tasks that are kind of active. The other filter that we just talked about a second ago was the assigned employee. Node ID should exist. And this just basically ensures that every single task that's put through this branch, firstly, is not in a complete stage, and secondly, actually has an assigned employee. So good so far. Now let's set up our two different filters. Now, in this case, we want to set up two different filters. One for tasks that are overdue, so where the due date is older than today's date, and the second one for tasks that are due today, where the due date is basically equal to today's date. Fairly simple, nothing too complicated. Let's go ahead and actually set this up. So the first trigger is basically going to be the simplest one, I believe. This is basically tasks where the due date is later than today's date. So for this, I'm going to enter the due date right here, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down to the date time operations, and I'll put later than or equal to, and fairly simple here, I'm just going to enter today's date just like that. Now I'm using a past date function, which is fairly simple. I mean, you can find it over here and just choose past date, and all it basically does is it passes a string with the date and returns the actual date, which is actually what we want. We don't want to make it too complicated. In this case, we're just formatting in this example just to make it nice and easier and matches what we actually have within the local. So I'm going to go press save, and once again, this is our pass, which I'm going to name this just for clarity of overdue tasks, where the due date is later than or equal to today's date. The second thing we want to do is enter tasks that are actually due today. And in this example, all we need to add here is something a bit more complicated, which is still relatively simple, but the filter, we want to make sure it doesn't, time zones don't affect this specific thing. So I'm going to go ahead and add this formula here. I'm going to talk you through what it actually means in a second as well. So here, right here, we're basically passing the date similar to what we did the other time in a specific format. And then we're also adding a formatter to actually set the time zone straight and format it in the output that we actually want it, which is year, month, day. This is important, guys. It doesn't necessarily have to do this, but I just always like to make sure my dates are formatted properly, especially when we're using it in specific filters. I don't like to come in a situation when down the line, for some reason, the dates are failing and then this whole automation will fail. So we use the format function and the pass function, just structure that due date a bit more, set in the right time zone, so I'm sure that all the dates are coming through are actually accurate. And then I'm just going to enter another date for the actual equal to. I'm going to change this quickly to data operation is equal to, and then once again here, I'm just passing the date again with the relevant time zone, and then formatting it to the same function we have here. So now we have two different paths. One path for overdue tasks, one path for tasks that are actually due today. Perfect. Very happy about the progress so far. I'm not going to run this yet because we need to have something here, but let's quickly talk about the next steps. So at the moment, we're basically searching for individual employees, adding them to a Google Sheet, and then we're also going to head and searching all our task database and splitting into the relevant functions. The key thing I want to do here is be able to group those tasks by each individual employee. And once again, the reason this is powerful is because this is going to allow us to actually update this even if they have multiple tasks in one individual row, rather than have it in separate rows, which was not really useful for us. So to do this, I'm going to go to flow control and add an array aggregator. And for the source module, I'm going to choose this second module right here, and then I'm going to leave the structure type to custom. I'm going to choose those relevant fields from the task database, which I actually care about. You don't necessarily need all of these, to be honest, but I like to have more than less. Gotta be a bit greedy sometimes. I'm going to turn on the advanced sensors because we actually want to group this by their assigned employee. And then for that, I'm going to go over here just to make sure you guys can see that. Open up their assigned employees, open up the edges, open up the node, and then get that specific ID. So now we're basically grouping each task by their assigned employee. So for example, if an employee has more than one task that is overdue, as you'll probably see in a second, we'll still be able to group them together. So we're going to leave it as this, and we're just going to do the exact same thing for the tasks that are due today. So I'm going to go flow control, I'm going to go array aggregator, I'm going to source module is going to be this one right here. I'm going to choose all that relevant information from the task information, just like that. And I'm going to turn on advanced settings, and then to actually group it, I want to group it by the assigned employee ID. Cool. So far so good. I'm not going to run this. Actually, I should be able to run this. Why not? I'll show you guys what this actually looks like. So if you go ahead and run this anyways, it's going to once again find the different employees, add them to the Google Sheet, search all the different individual tasks, and now you're going to see it split into two different functions. So if you open a project management system and we go to our backlog, which basically tasks that are active, you can see we have one task which is due tomorrow, one task which is due today, and another task which is due tomorrow. This one we're not going to count because it doesn't have an assigned employee. And if you go to our automation, you can see we have one overdue task and two tasks that are due today. And if you open up aggregator, you can see it's actually grouped it by the employee ID, which in this case is 6 and 2. And in this case, it's just one employee because it's just one task, which is 6. So far, so good. Now we basically want to iterate each individual task. So it's kind of weird. We're kind of arraying them and then iterating them. But this is important because when we'll as you'll see in a second, we're going to be using the iterator to actually send our Slack message. So this is very important if you actually want to format it the right way. So I'm going to go ahead and flow control again. And this time I'm going to choose the iterator. For the actual array, I'm just going to enter this array right here. And that's basically as simple as it gets. I'm going to do the exact same thing here. Now, just to make sure that this only works for arrays that actually have a key, I'm just going to add a filter here where the condition key exists. I'm going to put the same exact thing here. Condition key exists. This is make sure that no tasks come here if they don't have an assigned employee. Once again, very rare, but I would like to have these precautions just in case we need it down the line. So now that we have this iterator, which is basically going to process each task individually, we want to add one more step, which is the text aggregator. Now, all this basically does is aggregate multiple strings into one specific text. And this is what we need, because each of these individual functions we're going to find in the iterator, we want to add it together. So we're going to go over here. I'm going to choose the source module as the iterator. And for text, as you can see, we have all this nice information here. But the first thing I want to do is turn on advanced settings, because we're actually able to group this into different things. So for the row separator, I'm going to go over here and put new row. I'm not going to group it anything right now, but the main thing I care about is the actual text. And guys, this is where something that I like to call the block kit builder comes into play. Now, you're going to see a bunch of random things here. Don't get scared by this, guys. I'm going to talk you through how you can basically copy the exact same thing within your specific use case. But the reason it's like this is because we're using a Slack block kit builder, which is a fantastic tool by Slack. This is kind of like using HTML and emails to clean up the functionality and make it look a lot nicer. They have a bunch of different templates we want to copy, but in this example, I kind of wrote my own script, which you guys can get access to. And by the way, guys, if I haven't mentioned already, if you want access to this automation template so you can just copy straight into your agency, you can check out my school community using the first link in the description. It's 100% free. Within there, if you open up and you go over to the classroom, once you actually join, you'll go to YouTube resources and you'll find a video just like this where you can open this up and get that relevant material straight off the bat just by downloading it and just importing it into your Make account. It's 100% free. Within there, we host different things like weekly calls. We have over about 250 different established agency owners. So check it out using the first link in the description. But for now, let's keep on going with this tutorial. So we have these different things. We quickly want to change this with all the relevant information. So here I want to enter the task name. So I'm going to go over here, enter the task name. Here, then I want to enter the task status, which once again, I can just find right here with the status. Sorry, this is the actual task type, apologies. So I'm going to cancel that and then enter the task type. Here, then I'm going to enter the task status. And then here, I'm going to enter the due date again, just like that. And then the last thing I want to add here is the UUID, because I want to make sure that we have a button that we can easily just press it and I'll take us straight to the task. Now we're clicking to update that URL because that's a different one. So for example, if I go to a task, I can get this URL right here for my specific use case and then copy this string right here. And this little thing right here is the UUID, which will automatically import it in through the automation. So I'm going to go over here and delete this and enter that right there. Perfect. So that's pretty much it. Now if you go ahead and press save and we just duplicate this for the other one, and then obviously for the module we choose iterator 8, and we'll just quickly change this now with the relevant information. This is a slight annoying part of creating two different parts. We kind of have to repeat ourselves again, but nevertheless we'll get it done. So task type, we'll make it super quick. Then we have the status, a due date. I'm going to change this to the UUID, which is right here. Cool. Perfect. So far so good. Now that we actually have our text aggregator set up, now we need to move it on to actually set our different variables that we're going to be importing into the Google Sheet. Now this is fairly simple. All we're going to go is to tools again. If I scroll down to set multiple variables, we're going to be setting two different variables. The first one is actually going to be our overdue tasks. And then for this, I'm actually going to be adding my specific array with the employee name. So I'm going to go over to array here. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bundle order position right here and just add it in just like that. And then for the variable value, I'm just going to add a text from the text aggregator right there. And then I'm going to add another variable, which is the overdue employee ID. So I'm going to put overdue employee ID. And then once again, I'm going to open the array. And this time I'm going to open the assigned employee collection. And then once I'm here, and once again, I'm just going to enter that bundle order position, which is just one. And then for the variable, I'm just going to go ahead and enter the array, assigned employee collection, edges, node, and just enter that assigned employee right there. And I'm going to go ahead and press save. So I'm going to do the exact same thing for the other path. Once again, guys, it's slightly annoying because we're doing the same thing twice. However, hopefully it gives you an idea of how you can actually do this. Now, quickly, I need to change this. Rather than overdue tasks, I want to make this due today tasks. I'm going to go here and put due today tasks. Now the text is going to be the same. It's going to be this one instead. And then this we need to change. Once again, I'm going to put due today employee ID. And rather than being this, we want to change this to the actual relevant array. So I'm going to open this up, enter the board and on position, and then enter the variable, which is the assigned employee collection, edges, node, ID. Cool. So far, so good, I believe. The only thing we actually need to change, we need to add the actual position, just like that. So we're good there. Cool. So now we've set our variables, we aggregated our variables, we've iterated our variables, we've aggregated them again and routed them, so on, so forth. Let's go ahead and actually finally add this to our Google Sheet. Now, before we add this, I want to make sure I add it to the right row. So I'm going to go to Google Sheets. I'm going to scroll all the way down to search rows. And what we'll basically be doing here is finding that individual row we created here for the relevant employee. So once again, I'm going to select from my drive. For the spreadsheet ID, I'm going to search for daily task database, just like that. Now, the main thing we're looking for is two things. We're looking for the employee ID, and then we're also looking for today's date. So first things first, I'm going to choose the sheet. And then if I scroll all the way down here, I'll find the relevant filter, which the first thing is going to be employee ID is equal to, and here I want to enter the key, which is basically the employee ID. Then I'm going to go ahead and add another rule because I want to make sure the date also matches, right? Because once again, this database right here is going to compile over time with a bunch of different dates. So I want to make sure the date actual matches. So I'm going to put the date, which is D in this case, is equal to, and I'm going to enter that same function we had at the very start of this automation to make sure the date is equal to today's date. Fairly simple, guys. Let's go ahead and actually save this. And now once we actually found our row, to be honest, we can actually test this. Why not? I'll put it as 6. You can see we have our outputs here, which in this case is more than 1 because we were testing it. But we can just update the row quickly. On Google Sheets, I'm going to put update a row. I'm going to, once again, find the relevant ID just by doing choose from all. And then here I'm going to enter the daily task database. And it should automatically find it for me. And once it's actually found it, all I should be able to do is choose the relevant sheet just by doing the drop down, add the row number, which is row number 2. We got this from a previous step. And then all I want to do here is add the overdue tasks. And in order to actually do that, all I'm going to do, guys, very, very simply, I'm going to add the overdue tasks by adding this text right here from the text aggregator. Nothing complicated, guys. Nothing complicated whatsoever. I'm going to go press save, and now I want to quickly replicate this process for this task right here, and then we should be good to go. Let's not speak too soon, but we should be good to go after this, at least for the first automation, guys. I never said this was easy, even though this might look a bit complicated. Trust me, guys, this is not that crazy. I guess this is kind of the beginner-friendly version of this, believe it or not. So I'm going to add another module. Once again, I'm going to be honest, let me just do this to make my life a bit easier. I'm just going to copy and paste these two guys and add them there automatically, and then we just update the actual variables themselves. So in this example, it's going to be this key right here. That can stay the same, and rather than it be in this text, it's going to be this text right here. Cool. So let's quickly delete all of this. And then we're going to run the automation from scratch. And what you should see is added the relevant employee overdue tasks and due today's tasks for their assigned employees. So hopefully, let's go ahead and actually run this. And we'll wait for the magic to actually do its work. Once again, guys, bear with me. This automation, you're going to see it come to life in a second. So as you can see, the automation is finished now. And if I open this sheet up, oh, that is good. All right, cool. This is exactly what we wanted. So I'm very, very happy about that. Let me just quickly change this so you can see this a bit clearer. Boom, boom. So as you can see now, for our different employees, it's gone ahead and added that relevant Slack message, and also for the overdue tasks and the tasks that are actually due today, I believe. No. Okay, so a quick change we need to make at the moment is just added tasks that are basically overdue because we didn't set up properly in this step. I made a mistake. I should have basically changed this text to due today rather than overdue, because this was the due today pass. This is the kind of, we want to make sure you always test your automations as you go along, because you don't want to get them to the very end and then kind of make the process. So if I quickly run this again, just to make sure we have it right, I'm just going to delete this just to have kind of like a clean slate, right? Let's go ahead and delete this, and I just quickly add in this. Just I don't want to set up again. And if we run this again, now everything should work properly, and we should see that clear distinction between tasks that are due today and tasks that are overdue. So if you open this up, as you can see, boom, for employee 6, he's got one task that's overdue and one task that's due today. And then for employee 2, he has one task which is overdue. But just to show you how this works, like if employee would have multiple tasks, if you quickly update a couple more tasks which are assigned to a specific employee. So let's say in this example is Leo Fluxomate. We can go for this task right here, which is still in the backlog. I'm going to make it due today as well. So Friday, just like that. And then we can probably also maybe add this one, I guess, for the 22nd. Oh, this is the 21st. Let me quickly change this to March, 21st of March. And we'll do the same. Cool. So now, once again, if we run this again, because I want to really show you guys how this works and how cool this automation actually is for the step 1 at least. If you run this again now, you're going to see even if an employee has multiple tasks that are due today, it's going to basically compile them again in kind of one long string, which is what we need in Slack basically. So if we go down here to the database now, you can see it's basically compiled 2 different tasks together, which is exactly what we wanted, guys. Cool. So what we basically set up so far is an automation that scrapes the task database for each employee and then basically groups all the tasks they have either overdue or due today into our Google Sheet for each individual employee. What we basically want to do now is read that automation and send that as a message to the employee within Slack. Bear with me, guys. This is a lot easier than the previous automation, I promise you. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly save this. I'm going to name this automation, or I guess daily reporting automation #1 internal. And by the way, guys, once again, if you want access to the specific template so you can just copy it, just go to my school community, first link in the description, join it, it's 100% free, and then go to the classroom, go to YouTube resources, and then just, access the template just by going over here and downloading it. It's very, very simple. But I'm going to quickly create a new automation. And trust me, guys, this automation is a lot simpler. All I basically want to do here for the first step, I'm going to search my Google rows. So I'm going to go over to search rows. And the main thing we actually care about, once again, we're going to go through the same process where we select the spreadsheet ID, the task database. So for the sheet name, once again, it's going to be sheet 1. And if you scroll down slightly, the only thing we care about is that the employee ID actually exists. And most importantly, the actual date is today's date. And once again, we're going to use the exact same formatting functionality or format we used a second ago. So just like that, we're going to leave it as that. And this is basically going to find all the relevant employees that actually have a specific task today. Now, once you've actually done that, we want to add another step where we're basically going to actually search for that employee so we can get their email. Now, we could have just added it in the database, but just to make it simpler, once again, this is the simplest version the system actually gets. I'm going to go to Mind the Local Collection. I'm going to go over to employee, and then with the specific employee, all you want to do is search for it by the actual ID, so employee ID right here, and that's pretty much it for the beginning. So if I actually run this now, you're going to see it's going to find all those relevant tasks that I do today, and then for each of the employees, it's going to be able to allow me to actually access their email, which is what you care about. Now, once you've actually done that, we basically want to actually find that employee within Slack. So I'm going to go to Slack, I'm going to scroll all the way down until we see members or users, sorry. I'm going to put get a user, or sorry, search for a user. And I'm going to choose my Slack account, which in this case can be any of these guys. We'll try this one, maybe this one has permission. We'll have a look. So we'll just configure it again. And this is just as simple as logging in, guys. There's nothing complicated. I'm just going to put allow. I want to have permission to actually see different team members. And once we actually done that, all we can enter is the email from the employee database that we have right here. So in this case, it's fluxomate@gmail.com. And because a lot of these are example records apart from the first one, I'm just going to only allow this to pass through for fluxomate@gmail.com. So I'm going to put is equal to and then quickly enter. Once again, you don't have to do this. I'm just doing this because it's not going to work because all of these kind of employee emails are fake and they don't actually exist within my Slack. So now if you go ahead and test this, what it's going to do is going to search for that specific database, find employees, and then find that specific user ID within Slack. And then this is the last step, guys. All we need to do is send them a message. So I'm going to go over to Slack. I'm going to scroll down to create a message. And once again, this is where the block kit builder comes into play, because we want to actually send a message that's formatted nicely, just like the same one you saw in introduction. So for this, I've got this kind of set of code right here. Once again, guys, don't be intimidated by this because I don't want you to kind of worry. This is nothing complicated. This is nothing complicated whatsoever. And I'm going to show you through exactly how we built it. And if you want to access it, it's just done through this block kit builder. It's basically just as simple as dragging and dropping, different things like this, for example. It's not complicated at all. But just to kind of clarify, all we're doing here is sending a message. We want to name it, personalize it by the first name. So here I can add the first name just by going over to user and adding that first name. And if I scroll all the way down, I can see that good morning. And here I can add once again the first name for the actual user. We want to greet them nicely. Good morning, Leonardo, my name. And then here, this is very important. We want to add in that list of overdue tasks. Now, everything's formatted exactly the way it should be. So if we go all the way back down here and we get the overdue tasks, all we have to do is select it, and that's pretty much it. We want to do the exact same thing for tasks that are due today. Just once again selecting it and enter tasks due today, and that's pretty much it. We don't care about tasks that are due this week, so we can just go ahead and actually delete that, being very, very careful because we don't want to delete things unnecessarily. So we're just going to go and delete that, and then we can also actually just delete this divider because we already have one down here. So that is pretty much it, guys. So what we should see now, if we actually go ahead and test this, all we have to do is just quickly scroll down and actually send us to the right person. So rather than a channel, I'm going to go over and select from list. And there's not going to be a public channel. It's actually going to be a direct message because we want to actually DM the people every single day. And then for the user, I'm going to map this and just enter that user ID right here. Cool, guys. So this is the automation complete. I'm so excited to actually show you this to you guys. Let me just quickly load up Slack for a second. So as you can see, I got Slack right here and an example channel. Now, if you go ahead and actually run this automation, guys, I should receive that daily message report with all the different tasks formatted beautifully. Let's hope so. I don't want to make any last minute changes on the video. So as you can see, it's going to actually send a message. If I open my Slack and I go to apps and I open up my example app, I get that nice message that's like, okay, Leonardo, this is a daily task summary. Here's the tasks I do today. And as you can see, we have all those different tasks that are grouped in automatically, right? And if I go ahead and actually view the task, it should take me directly to my project management system to that specific link for that specific task. How cool is that, guys? And once again, guys, you can edit this as much as you want, right? Now that we actually, I'll give you an idea how the block kit builder works. Why not? A little bonus. If I open up blocks and I copy all of this over to the block kit builder, which you can just find by searching Slack block kit builder, and I just enter all of this here, you can see I can easily edit this, right? Let's say I wanted to add an image here at the top. I can just go over down here, add an image, and just literally just add it in like that. And I can just change the image. It's very, very cool, the block kit builder. I like to use it in all of my automations because it kind of just gives that premium look to it. And that's pretty much it, guys. Now, once again, what this automation does is that for each individual employee, it's going to send them a personalized message with their relevant tasks. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's how you can send custom reports to your clients every single morning with all the tasks they actually have due today. This is a very cool automation. I've really encouraged a lot of my partners to actually integrate this within their agencies because it's a great measure of accountability. I mean, imagine if you were to receive a report every single morning telling you exactly what tasks you have to do today. You're much more inclined to actually do them and to prevent you from forgetting different tasks and whatnot. You can obviously take this up a notch a lot of different ways. You can set some sort of priority level. You can even have some sort of AI assistant that looks at the amount of hours each employee has available and then periodically assign those tasks throughout the day. I mean, there's a lot you can do to this, but this is kind of the standard version. And it's a version that you can easily copy into your agency using my tutorial today. Guys, once again, if you want access to this specific template, all you have to do is head over to the first link in the description, join our actual free school community. If you go to the classroom section, open up YouTube resources and you'll see it in just with the automation breakdown. And it's literally just as simple as opening one of these, downloading them, going over to mate.com, and then pressing this button right here to actually import the blueprint, and that will automatically bring both automations directly into your account. It's quite crazy. If you have any questions about anything I talked about today, feel free to drop them a comment below. We're still a very, very small channel, so the likelihood of us actually giving you an in-depth response to your comment if you come against any troubleshooting issues or just general questions about the automation or operations in general is very, very high. So don't be shy, drop as many comments as you want. We're here to actually support you guys in any way that we actually can. If this video is helpful, I appreciate it if you first were to share with us a friend. And secondly, guys, I don't think you should stop your learning here. You know, I've just shown you a very, very cool automation. On my channel, I literally have a video going over 24 different make.com automations. So if you want to increase your learning and continue integrating different automations like this into your agency to make your team lives easier and increase the number of clients you can take without ruining your client's experience, then check out this video right here to give you more idea of how you can actually use those automation. Apart from that, guys, it's been a pleasure actually recording this video. Please let me know if you have any questions and let me know how you actually integrate this within your agency. All right. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.